Hi everyone, working on the 67 again. Today we're going to set the toe and talk a little bit about a bump steer on these cars. It's when they got the stock tie rods and stuff like that, there's nothing you can do about the bump steer, and it's really good from the factory. But when you put a rack in them and you lower them and you aftermarket stuff under there, you gotta get a bump steer kit, which TRZ sells them, and I'll kind of show you what is entailed with those deal with those things are, and show you how to adjust them and try to get as much bump steer out of the car as you can. And by bump steer, what I'm referring to is, if your front wheels, you got your toe is zero, like this. I mean, you set the car with the toe in just a tiny bit, but what I'm getting at is, when the front suspension goes through its travel, if you don't have the bump steer set, you'll see the front wheels will get like crazy like this as they go through the travel. Everybody has seen like videos of cars online and stuff like that, how they just go like this. Well, that's what you're trying to eliminate. So, but you got to space. There's geometry in there and all involved, and it's kind of hard to explain. It's a little bit above me, but I know how to fix it. So what you want to do is, you want to try and keep the toe as perfect as possible through all its travel. Now, the more travel you introduce, the harder it is, but it can be done. So let's get started. So first thing is, let me see if I can. You see I got toe plate, I got tape measure in the front, tape measure in the back. It goes to both sides. And right now the car is towed in 1/8 of an inch, which is that's where we set them. Now this is it's pretty simple setup. Longacre makes it. That's how we did our cars forever. Longacre does sell one that bolts to your hub. You got to take not your hub, but bolts to your spindle. You got to take the wheel off, the brakes off, and bolt it to your spindle. We have that as well, and we use that a lot at the shop, but it's a lot more entailed, and it has dial indicators on it. It's more accurate, of course, but you know what? It's hard to beat this way. I mean, my own personal car, my red car, is done this way, and I've been 210 in that car, mile an hour, and 0 issues. So, but this is a pretty extremely inexpensive way of doing it yourself. Let's see if we can get. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna jack this thing up a little bit. So like I said, it's 1/8 inch right now. So let me jack it up and see what we got for bump steer. What I usually do is, you can run the thing, all the way through its travel, but typically I'll run it up. This car's got like 3 inches of front end travel. Every car's a little bit different. Obviously, like I said, the more travel you have, the harder it is to get it to 0. All right, so that's about 2.5 inches. So set the toe. You got to just reset your toe plates. After you jack it up, you can reset your toe plates. Okay, so it's towed in about just a little over 1/2 inch, maybe not quite 5/8, which really, that's not too bad starting off. So what I try to shoot for, ideally you want to keep it perfect, but sometimes that's hard, and sometimes you can get them. Every car is just a little bit different. So on these cars, I've done enough of these cars. We should definitely be able to get this down 1/4 of an inch worst. So let's get under there. We'll adjust show you what I want to adjust. Alright. So if you buy a bump steer kit, if you get it from TRZ, you'll get this, the Heim, and then a bunch of spacers. So what we're going to do is change the angle of this to help correct the bump steer. So because this all moves together, like there's a hidden line from the upper pivot point to lower pivot point, and ball and the inner tie rod. So you gotta get it all to work together. Get my Milwaukee tool out here. It's a Milwaukee or nothing. So what I'm gonna do is I had nothing on the top. So I'm gonna move this big one to the top and kind of see what we got. It's just really, guys, it's just trial and error. And over the years, you kind of learn obviously learn some things, but there's always one car that throws you for a loop. All right, so do the same thing on the other side. So this spacer was at the bottom, I moved to the top, so it changes this angle. And it kind of follows the lower control arm a little bit better than what it was. So I'll set it back down, readjust the toe, the 1/8 inch toe in, and then we'll check the bump steer again. And then also, like when you start, like I said, bump steer kit comes with different spacers and stuff like that. And it doesn't hurt to have, you know, some washers too to fine tune it if need be. Now if you set it back down, and you bounce the car. Okay, so that spacer may have been a little too much. So what happens is, if you think about the rack, and you got both tie rods out here like this, that's the widest point of the rack. So if it goes down, you know, from my tip of my finger to tip of my finger, as you go down like that, it gets narrower. So it's kind of like you're trying to find that sweet spot through the motion. If I look funny on film, but so I'm just gonna try another spacer situation here. Obviously, you got to do both sides equally. Okay, so I went from the thick one. I got one that's just a little bit smaller with some shims and some spacers. So we'll see what that does. Like I said, we'll do the same on the other side. All right, back on the ground. Always guys keep an eye on, make sure your steering wheel's straight as you're doing all this. All right, that's an 1/8 inch toed in. Close. So that's 1/8. That's 1/4 of an inch. It's just a hair over 1/4 of an inch, and I'm good with that. So we got the bump steer down where it's 1/4 of an inch in. So it's worth noting also, you know, that it's worth noting also, you know, you're checking the bump steer going through its travel, but you also, you know, so when you're going down the track, you want to make sure everything's good. Well, you also got the shutdown. When you shut the cars down at the top end, the front end settles down and it actually goes lower than ride height. So you have to consider that also. A lot of the cars we build usually only have like 1 inch, maybe a little bit more of shaft showing on the shock. So that means the front end, it can only come down about another inch and a half tops. Because we only show 1 inch of shaft because we want to have as much shock buried in the shock so we can get as much front end travel when the car leaves. The more shaft you have showing, because you're limited on shock length on the front of these cars, a lot of cars. And so you do have to consider that as well. But with really only an inch and a quarter shaft showing, you know, if I had somebody here, I'd have them push down in front of the car, and I can check the toe plates. But I've done enough of these cars to know that 1 inch, it's not going to be much at all. So that's really kind of like the in and outs of bump steer. It just takes some time. Sometimes it takes longer than others to just play with the shims, get them where you want, and just, you know, go through all the motions. Now I have a couple spacers in there with some washers. I mean, if this was a car at the shop for a customer, I'd make a new aluminum, you know, all one piece, but on this car, it'll be fine. It's got a couple washers in it. I'm not gonna lose sleep over it. It'll be fine. I'll go in there, tighten everything up, lock up the jam nuts, and take it out for a test drive. Steering wheel straight, take on test drive. And since I put those new quick turn steering arms on there, see if I can tell a difference. Now I can already tell a difference on the steering. So that's a wrap on bump steer. Hopefully you guys picked up some tips on it and learned a couple things. As far as the steering, straightening the steering wheel up after you're doing alignment, I went over that on a video from on the rack video. So if you want to go back and revisit that, that's in there. And there's some in-car footage. You'll see it's a little shaky. It's not the steering wheel shaking or the car shaking. It's just the way I had the phone attached to the cage. So just bear with that. So that's it. Hey guys, got any questions? Post them in the comments and I'll reply. Again, check out our apparel. We got new stuff in and new stuff coming.